Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. What's up, everybody? I have Siddhu from the awesome Brooklyn-based band Semaphore on the show today. How you doing, man?
What's up? I'm doing well, Shane. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So prior to me hitting record, you asked me a question, so I'll answer it for you now. You want to know how I found you. So I spend hours upon hours online seeking out new music. That's what I love to do, and I love to find something. And when something hits me, that's it. You make it to my weekly threes, which is three things that we're listening to. And I
Nice.
found you on Bandcamp through my 5 hours doom scroll and listen to your latest album, I Need a Reason to Stay, and you gave me that reason so to stay and listen to it all. So thank you for
Awesome.
that.
That's all we can hope for from the people who listen to our music.
Now, why don't you give us you started back in 2013, if I'm correct, right? This whole thing
Yeah,
started
yeah.
coming together.
Yeah, this project has been around for a lot longer than I think people would imagine, given that, we're still very much a local band. But yeah, I mean, basically, it started when I was in college. I grew up actually mainly as a jazz saxophone player, and kind of like a multi-instrumentalist, but more from a jazz and classical background. But I always loved rock music, like the stuff that Semaphore probably reminds a lot of people of. I grew up listening to that. And so in college, I wanted to teach myself guitar and start a band. And basically, I did that. And that's, our first EP called And in a Blink is still on Bandcamp and Spotify and stuff. And so that album was me writing music and learning guitar at the same time. And so the band was my project for a couple of years in college, and then no one else in the band wanted to keep it going, so it then became very much a solo project. And then after I graduated from college in 2015, and after that, I was in New York and I moved to Brooklyn, and then met all the guys who are currently in Semaphore, and now everyone contributes to the writing, and everyone writes their own parts, and we record all together. Before I was recording all the instruments on the album, but the last EP, Leave with the Season, and this album, I Need a Reason to Stay, both of those are more collaborative efforts.
And you brought up how that long old sound, and when I first heard it, it brought me back to the days of listening to Hum and Far and all those bands from the late '90s, and I kind of put you guys into that category of sounding nostalgic for me. Where
I like that.
You're new, but you have
Yeah.
a nostalgic tinge to you, but you make it your own. So there's no one saying you're just copying, doing something else. You're almost paying homage to that, but you're bringing it to light so new fans can hear the sound, which is awesome.
Totally. I think the funny thing about, especially like the bands you mentioned, Hum and Far, is that I think I am also influenced by the bands that influence those bands more so than those bands itself. Like, I only really checked out Hum and Far within the last 5 years. When I was growing up, I was much more of a Pink Floyd, Black Sabbath, like Smashing Pumpkins fan. Like, actually, the day we're recording today is not to date the episode, but it's like the 30th anniversary of Siamese Dream. And when I was teaching myself guitar, the way I taught myself guitar was by learning every song on Siamese Dream. And so to me, that album was kind of quintessential to the music I listened to. But then I didn't listen to any of those late 90s bands. It kind of jumped to, I grew up in DC, so I listened to a lot of Radio Rock. DC 101 was the station back in the day. And then I got really into, kind of like post-hardcore, what everyone calls emo these days. But then I jumped around a lot. Like I was listening to a lot of like indie electronica. Was very into Animal Collective. Obviously, like I said, I grew up as a jazz saxophone player, so a lot of jazz throughout. So yeah, I think I was able to retain some of that nostalgia, as you said, because I never actually really was influenced by those bands, but I was influenced by the bands that influenced those bands.
Okay. Now, so you graduating college, you started a band. So when you started finding music as a child, did you grow up in a musical household? Was it something that was going on when you were growing up? Like, were there other, parents or aunts, uncles, family playing other instruments or listening to music that kind of caught your eye?
Yeah, so neither of my parents play music, but they both love music. I have like my dad's uncle. I'm Indian slash Sri Lankan, and my dad's uncle was actually a Carnatic flute player, in Sri Lanka, and so that's almost like the only person in our family who did something musically. And so, but no, I mean, growing up, like I said, most of the bands I grew up listening to were honestly the bands that my parents liked a lot. Like my dad was a huge Pink Floyd fan, a lot of 90s rock bands from England. And so most of what I grew up listening to was that. My mom actually grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, and she was really into funk and Motown. And so that's a whole another side of the stuff that I grew up listening to. But they didn't play music, but they were very supportive of, you know, my musical journey when I was a kid.
That's awesome. Do you remember the first thing you heard that made you want to find more, like discover music? I always go back to, people were probably sick of me hearing it, but this is how I equate it. I was 6 years old. I heard the Beach Boys for the first time, and my life changed forever from that point on in music. That was it.
Yeah. If I was to think of the first time, honestly, like it's also another cliche, but hearing the heartbeat at the beginning of Dark Side of the Moon just kind of like led me down the path of thinking, okay, it just affected me so much hearing that song and hearing that, it's not even music. Like, I mean, I guess what is music? That's a whole
Yeah.
whole nother conversation that can last for like years. But like, that album really, to me, is still such a beautifully written album. And it just really deeply affected me.
And I totally understand that, because that's one of those albums that proves to you that it's not just music that can, bring you to a place. It's sounds, right? It's those sounds that can create visions. Basically, is what, that's what Dark Side of the Moon was. It was, it was kind of this long, and I don't want to, I mean, the best way to describe it is like a rock opera, but it's creating its own vision and sound for you. So you can sit there and doesn't matter who you are, everyone's going to have a different picture, movie playing in their head when that came on. So they added a lot of creation to that, and I can understand how that can. Totally
it's definitely like sound painting almost. It just goes through so many different emotions and even like soundscapes. I recently re-listened to it, and On the Run, the second album, where it's just the synthesizer arpeggio going for the whole song. It's like, it's actually kind of insane that that song existed in the 70s. It's just such a cool song. It's just so, I mean, it's repetitive. And at this point, if you fucked around with like a Moog arpeggiator, it's like, okay, well, I know how to redo this in like 2 seconds. But then it's like, no, actually, like the way they did it. And I think that it's funny that there's a couple early musical memories I have that are actually tied to like being scared. Because I think that Dark Side of the Moon is actually kind of a scary album for a kid. There's a lot of like weird laughing and like, it's kind of uncomfortable at moments. And I think that being scared by that album almost like made it stick with me more. In a way, yeah. And like, I don't know, the song Clint Eastwood by Gorillaz. I remember seeing the music video for the first time, which is just a bunch of zombie gorillas coming out of the ground. And I remember being terrified by that music video, but because I was so terrified, it like stuck with me and just made me just really want to listen to that song more and more because of that. So I don't know, there's some weird juju happening for kid memories of music, I think.
Listen, I get it. There's a lot of things that, I remember seeing a video for Black Sabbath, and like it was just crazy lights flashing and I don't want to date myself, but I'm probably much older than you, but I remember seeing that video and just being like, I'm scared out of my mind, but I think my brother has this record. I gotta go.
Yeah,
play.
sure.
And like that, and that's exactly how it works.
Yeah, I mean that album is very meaningful to me. I think if I were to fast forward a couple of years past then, I spent 1 year or like one summer going to school in India. And on the flight home, I remember listening to like BBC radio or something on the flight home. And I remember that they just played the same loop of music every like couple of hours, and of course it's
Yeah.
like a super super long flight. But I remember the first time I heard "I Miss You" by Blink-182 was on that flight, and then I just like I must have been like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years old or something like that. And I just remember hearing that song and being like, what was that? And then I didn't know what it was, but they had all the list of the songs. And I recognized some songs. I said, okay, I'm gonna listen to all 3 hours of this music just so I know what it is by the second time that it comes around. And so yeah, I mean that album as well is just like such a meaningful first album that I heard from like that type of music, that type of rock music, where I was like, oh, okay, now there's like this other window into like, you know, pop punk, but also I think that album to me is much more soundscapey than all their other albums. You know, the guitar tones are a lot. It's much more produced of an album, but in a way that doesn't sound, you know, radio produced. It's just a very good rock album.
Yeah,
and then,
you had your gateway drug.
yeah, absolutely. And then Mark Hoppus had actually like one of the first early music podcasts called Hi, My Name is Mark. And I discovered a lot of music by listening to that podcast in middle school. It was like that. I listened to a lot of Pandora radio because Pandora was fun because you could just put on like Minus the Bear radio, and it's just like, here's every Minus the Bear type of band that like probably doesn't have that many listeners, but like somehow the Pandora algorithm fed it to me.
Yeah. And Spotify tries to do that now, and I found that I have more luck just going on Bandcamp myself and finding things that I want to hear than totally. Spotify throwing shit on there where I got it. One of the bands that I just don't understand, and I'll even say I don't get it, and I don't like them, but like sure. Red Hot Chili Peppers, like there's people who love them. People either love them or they don't like them. Like I've never been somebody who's like, yeah, they're okay. Like never, but I was playing golf or something, and I had one of my playlists that I made, a 16-hour playlist.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, Chili Peppers pop up on there, and I'm like, my buddy who knows I can't stand them looks at me. He's like, you put Chili? I'm like, I did not fucking do that. I'm like, Spotify threw that on. Like the 16 hours that I curated wasn't good enough. They're like, oh, you may like this.
Oh yeah, I mean, learning. I will say I do listen a lot. I use Spotify a lot. I do. Obviously, it's a tough thing to like try to balance how to support artists, but also having every song ever written at your fingertips.
Oh yeah, it's a necessary evil.
Yeah, but there is an option where you can turn off that autoplay function, and it has completely like positively affected my relationship to Spotify for sure. I will say on the other side, I am a Red Hot Chili Peppers apologist, but I'll mainly say that's another thing. I mean, when I was growing up, that was also the early days of YouTube, and also I don't know if you remember like Google Video, which is like before Google bought YouTube, but they had the first that or not the first. They had Woodstock '99, but the Red Hot Chili Peppers video, and what I did play bass in high school, like just a little bit, like middle school and high school. And remember, you know, if you're a bass player and Red Hot Chili Peppers comes on, like, I don't know, it definitely did itch a scratch. And I will still say, like, Flea's stage presence to me from those early gigs is still, like, kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to be a musician. Because you see that and you're like, yeah, that's, like, kind of who I want to be. Like,
yeah, well, listen, Flea's a great... And honestly, for whatever they are, and listen, I'm sure Flea or Anthony Kiedis or Chad Smith or
Anthony Kiedis, you don't have to defend Anthony Kiedis. Like, that's the one person you do not have to defend.
They're great musicians, and I get it, especially with Flea. Flea, he was more than just a bassist. Like he was almost really the front man. Like that's the way you look at it, because he stood out more so than Kiedis, especially when they started, because it was very bassy, and I get it. Why people like it, but I just don't get it, and I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just an asshole, and that's fine. I don't mind being an asshole. I can't. I've never heard anything that gave me a redeeming factor, so you don't have to apologize to me for it. It's my own feeling. And
no, listen, it's completely fair, because like everyone else in Semaphore, especially Jay, our other guitarist, he's a huge Mr. Bungle fan, and so we often get into he just really does not like what Red Hot Chili Peppers did to Mr. Bungle back in the day. And so then, and yeah, like I said,
he took it personally.
He takes it a little personally. Yeah. But then I forced them all to listen to Californication on one car ride. I don't know if anyone actually liked it by the end, but you know,
Well, as long as you had control and you enjoyed it at that moment, that's
exactly.
that's the thing. So what led you to saxophone? Well, was it the last instrument you could pick when you were in a school band or something, or did you choose that? Like that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, there's a couple reasons. Like one is because, Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd, I do remember hearing the Money solo for the first time. And it's kind of like objectively, I mean, not objectively, cannot say objectively. If you ask a jazz musician what they think about that guitar or the saxophone solo, it's kind of like a hokey saxophone solo, but it's also kind of perfect to what that album is and what that song is. And like, it does exactly what a saxophone needs to do for a Pink Floyd song. So hearing that definitely made me interested in saxophone. But I think my dad, when he was in his like later 40s, early 50s, was going through, I guess, like a midlife crisis. And so he bought an alto saxophone and took some lessons. And this was like right before I learned. And then when I was like of the age where they were like, hey, elementary school band, like if you want to join, you need an instrument. He had the saxophone. So that's why I started playing saxophone.
Nice.
Yeah.
When you first performed or started learning how to play and performed in front of strangers, do you remember that moment, the first time you had to do something musically in front of strangers?
Yeah, and it's funny that we're bringing all of this together. Actually, well, the first time I can't recall, because the first time I'm sure I played, like one of those early like elementary school concerts where it's like loud and out of tune, and the parents are just there to clap.
That's parents and classmates. It's not really strangers.
So that's not. I mean, so my high school and middle school were very like, they weren't performing arts schools by any means, but they just really cared about the arts, and we had a shitty football team, so like like arts actually like kind of mattered, and it was like everyone kind of was like, oh, if you're a musician, you're actually kind of cool, which I feel like was not a lot of people's experience growing up in America. But
I had the same experience. Our football team sucked, and
so
and soccer and arts were like the better of the things to be a part
totally.
of.
In middle school, like I guess it's still in front of peers, but we had like a battle of the band sort of thing, but every band was like a cover band. And one of the bands that I was in covered Money by Pink Floyd, and that was the first time that I played saxophone live in that sort of setting where it was like more exposed and it's like a solo. And then at the end of the show, our band's like finishing, but people were really liking it. So they're like, okay, what song can we play now? Like, do we have an encore? And they were like, well, we kind of know Can't Stop by Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then I was like, oh yeah, I know the lyrics to the song. I can sing it. And I start the first verse and I'm like, wait a second. I can only sing along to the song when Anthony Kiedis is backing me up. And I immediately forgot all the lyrics of the song. And so honestly, that was kind of like a really great first live experience, because it just immediately made me feel like, okay, that's fine. If you fuck everything up, like it'll still be worth it. It'll still be great. Like, there's no like actual big anxiety hanging over your head for this like fucked up performance. But yeah, I mean, that to me always stands out as like a first performance when I think about like what was the first performance that I did. As far as like in front of strangers, I think that experience actually just so like tempered everything that it never was it never was as anxious as that moment, in the sense that like because of that, I just never ended up I never ended up like really registering, oh yeah, like now we're playing in front of like a lot of strangers. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, your first experience is somewhat of a success and failure, so you got to taste both at the same time, right? So
yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Now, when you're a kid, what was the first concert you ever went to as a child, maybe, or maybe you didn't go to any until you were older, but your first concert?
Yeah, the first concert I ever went to, my parents, it probably is like some classical or jazz thing that I don't fully remember, but the first memorable concert I went to was, it was Billy Joel and Elton John. They did like a dueling piano concert
I saw it. I saw it at Giant Stadium in like '89 or '90. I forget what.
Yeah, I
It
mean, I
was
think they
somewhere.
did that a couple of times. I must have seen it probably in like 98 or 99 or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I also, both those artists, I do like their music. Like, I think The Stranger by Billy Joel is still a good album, even though it's so like, now that you know what Billy Joel is, and like, if I don't know if you've seen that Netflix movie, it's like
I,
all about sidemen in
yeah. I
bands.
no. I watched it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the whole Billy
yeah.
Joel thing made me feel like, oh Jesus Christ, like
No,
he's
that was
not
the
great.
that was the moment where I was like, fuck.
Yeah,
BJ, like that, and again, listen, you never know what the true story is because he never talked about it. So,
true, true,
and again, this way I look at it, hey, if he fucked him over, that sucks, but maybe there's something else going on. I love documentaries, but also at the same side, I'm like, there's got to be some, I only get one person's version, right? So
totally, totally. Yeah, it's hard to fully know.
yeah. He
Yeah,
allegedly fucked somebody over. Let's do. I'm doing air quotes allegedly, so no one
yeah,
can come
right.
after us for it, for defamation.
The very random thing about that guy is that so I also play bass in this band Gatherers, which is from kind of like New Jersey, like basically New York, New Jersey. And the drummer of Gatherers, his name's Adam. He runs a studio, and in the studio, he bought that guy's bass, like Billy Joel's bassist's bass that he recorded a lot of Billy Joel songs on. And so when I was recording bass for the Gatherers album that came out last year, I also had to record. I recorded on that bass a little bit too. So there's some random connections as well going on.
What was the first concert you got to pick to go to on your own? Like, what was the first one you picked?
Yeah, the first concert I picked was it's a really funny lineup given the order of these bands. But so I was really into this band, Protest the Hero. I don't know if you remember that
Yeah.
band.
Yep.
So Protest the Hero opened for A Day to Remember, who opened for The Devil Wears Prada, who opened for Silverstein. And Silverstein was the headliner, as opposed to like, I guess now A Day to Remember is like fucking massive compared to the three bands. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, and Precious the Hero is still a big band, and I don't know if Devil Wears Prada still makes music, but yeah, that I was just really into Protest the Hero, and I kind of liked Silverstein as well. Hadn't really heard A Day to Remember at that point, and I was just on the verge of liking music with screaming. So like, I remember when Devil Wears Prada came on, I was like not a fan at all. But yeah, that was at the 9:30 Club. It's a good show from
Yeah,
what I
I'll say.
remember.
And to be able to one that you get to pick at 9:30 is pretty awesome. I've been there a bunch of times, and a legendary place to see music.
Yeah, absolutely. That, I mean, that to me, 9:30 Club is still like such an awesome venue. It's just so like it just makes you. It's so many people can fit in that room, but it still feels like a small show. And I think they treat everyone well, from what I know. So yeah, that was like the venue that I grew up going to. It was like that. The Black Cat was right around the corner from there. And then DC9 is right down the street.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
DC9 to me is like, now that's like my favorite of the three. I got to see the Dillinger Escape Plan there a couple of years ago before they broke up. And that's like a insane venue to see a band like the Dillinger Escape Plan.
Yeah, there's not a lot of amazing venues that can stand out, but like, the history in a lot of places, me growing up outside, in New Jersey, outside of New York City, and being able to go to shows at CBGB's and just the lore of the place, and like places that were just so amazing that are not around anymore. We had Roseland Ballroom, which was just an awesome place. It was small, but it felt big, and it just was a great place. And,
that's awesome.
Now you have like, my favorite place in the city now is Bowery. Has been for quite some time. Bowery Ballroom is one of the best, but just there's so many pockets now, and then Brooklyn becoming what it has become in the past 10, 15 years is,
right.
As I say, there's music's only created in 5 places in the continental United States, and Brooklyn, Philly, Austin, Nashville, and LA. Like those are the only places that people are from now. But it's just I enjoy, and sometimes I probably take it for granted that I have so much music at my fingertips at all times to just walk and go see live music whenever I want. It's just an awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Brooklyn is especially when, maybe like 5-8 years ago, when I was just starting off, like trying to actually make Semaphore more of a thing. Yeah, my homework for myself was like every single day, or at least like maybe 4 times a week, go to a local show, no matter what it was. Just like look it up if it's something that sounds interesting. Like if it's a name that you recognize, just go and see these people and like try to like meet people and like see just like what the scene is about. It's you just can do that. There's just always shows happening in New York. It's such a fun city for that reason. Even if it can get very tiring and the summers are very hot and sticky, it's definitely worth it.
I'm sweating my ass off right now. Now, for your band Semaphore, if no one ever heard the band or heard the music that you played, and someone asked, "Well, play me one of your songs that best describes you," what song of yours would you play for them?
I think the one song that kind of wraps up Semaphore is maybe the song Porcelain, because I think that song touches on kind of like all of our influences, but also speaks to what we think is unique about the sound. There's like a lot of, the beat is very driving, the chords are kind of shimmery, like the vocals are like delayed and reverbed out. There's a whole black metal section. There's like a whole like spacey guitar section that sounds like synthesizers instead of guitars. And then I'd like to think that the choruses are almost like hooks. They're very like catchy and hooky. And it's also like harmonically, I think, a very complex song, even though it might not seem like it on its base. Like I think the type of chords that Jay plays during the verses, like I don't even know what he's playing during there, but that's like exactly like any sort of jazzy, impressionistic classical music influence chordal tones. Like that's exactly what I'm trying to like make Semaphore engage with, even though we're still very much a rock band.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was drawn to originally when I listened to the album the first time. And people who listen to the show know, but you don't know. I have a rule of 5. I listen to an album that catches me 5 different ways to see if it truly is what I'm feeling. Sometimes I get to that 3rd step and I'm like, and then I get to the 4th step and I'm like, nope. And maybe it was just the first or second time I listened to it, I was just in a different place. But I listened to the album 5 times, and it made me reach out to you to have you on the show. And
that's awesome.
I think what happened to me was there was so many different complexities to the music, but it was also at the same point very simplistic. And that is in no way, shape, or form taking anything away from it. It means that you made all those complexities and layers to your music simple for people to digest.
Totally.
And that's a completely different way of musicianship when you're composing and putting together and writing songs. It's very complex to when you're creating it and doing it, but you also have to make it digestible for the person who doesn't have a complex ear, right? And I think that's exactly what you did with I Need a Reason to Stay. Was you made it so anyone can listen to it. It wasn't just your mathy guys or your shoegaze guys or your metal guys. Like, you made it so it's digestible by anybody that picks it up to listen to it. So that's what I think is really cool.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, that's kind of like our MO right there. Just making complex music sound a lot less complex than it actually is. Because I think at the end of the day, you want people to still move to it, and moving can take any form that a person wants to engage with movement. But if you make something too heady, we're the members of Semaphore, we're also in other bands together. We have a band called Juan Bond that Jay and I are in, which is a mathcore band. And then, Emmett, who's the drummer of Semaphore, has a band called Detach the Islands that I and Jay also play in. And that's like power violence, grindcore sort of music. And I feel like, when it comes to those genres, it's like, okay, here's the MO is to make it sound complicated and make you be upset.
Yeah.
And, I think that's like, I want people to be able to listen to Semaphore and then hear it at one stage. But then, as you said, like being able to also listen to it and think, oh my God, like actually, how are they accomplishing these things and the sounds and the chords? Like, I want people to be able to bliss out to it or really get nerdy about it at the same time.
And as you said, it's a really hard thing to do. And for listening to music and being a part of music for as long as I have in my life, it's easier for me to tell pretty fast. And I'm like, I can almost gauge on, I can give this to somebody and I'm okay with putting my stamp on it because they're going to get it. Because there are other things where it is made to fucking confuse you when you're listening to, and I'm like, I don't know who to share this with. It's almost like it's made for me, the nerd type of thing, and that's why when it comes to your band, I want to share it with people. I want people to know, you're on a show called Hidden Tracks, and this is me just trying to lift you up and say, hey, listen, these guys are awesome. And don't worry about if there's something that may confuse you somewhere. I guarantee you're going to be like, oh, I get it now. And that's my whole thing, is like understanding it and getting it and making it easy for people to just be like, hey, I really like this.
Totally. That's awesome. That's all we can hope for as a band, is that people not only like it, but really want to show other people our music as well, and think that it is, I would never write music purely to be accessible. And I know that's not what you're saying either, but I do think that having a band that you'd be comfortable challenging someone with is kind of important too.
And listen, you need to challenge yourself, right? And that's and I totally get that. And sometimes that's where I think I'll listen to some bands too, and you can tell that they just rest on their laurels and this is it, and they never challenge themselves because the sound never fucking changes, and it gets stagnant. Like you get into that thing, but the fact, like, you're in so many other bands as well, that you always get to scratch that itch where some people don't ever get to do that.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, we're also lucky enough that everyone except for me also went to music school, so we get to be nerdy enough about the music that we also know how to strip back the nerdiness and like just kind of say, okay, but like, what are we actually trying to do with these things? Like, what do we, how can we actually like do some compositional stuff so that it actually makes sense, but it's not too out of the genre or too crazy sounding or like just too off-putting. It's a nice shared language that a shared language and like a shared understanding of what we want Semaphore to sound like.
Nice. Now, when you were growing up and you started playing music and you got into that first band that you were in and playing saxophone, what was the name of that band and why? You had to have some weird or cool name.
Yeah, I mean, with that specific band, that was more of a band that I was just kind of like, they were kind of a band, and then they needed saxophone for their cover of Money. And so I wouldn't say I was a member of that band. But the other bands that I grew up like that I was in.
What was the name of your very first band?
My very first band was called Fullman Likes Lily. We had a friend named Andrew Fullman, and he had a crush on this girl named Lily. And so we just, the name of the band was bullying him. Fullman Likes Lily. And then we decided that, I don't know why, I think some kid showed up to school like high on brownies, high on pot brownies. And so we renamed the band Brownies for Breakfast. And then I had another band called LBF, which is a secret name, what LBF stands for, and that'll, I think, die with all of us to our graves. and then I also have a cardinal sin of being in a ska band, and the name of that ska band was called White Bread with a Dash of Curry, because I'm Indian and everyone else is white, and so
it's like NoFX, 2 Hebes, white trash, and a bean.
There you go. Yeah, those are all at my like high school bands.
Now, is there anything that you listen to that people be really surprised by? You told them that you get tons of enjoyment on, like maybe you dance around in your living room when no one's looking,
I mean, there are a lot of bands that I like that I feel like you're not supposed to like as like respectable musician. I mean, the one thing that I will say, and maybe it's not even that outrageous
Don't worry
anymore.
about losing street cred. You can
Oh
say
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you want here.
I mean, I've already admitted that I like Red Hot Chili Peppers, so I'm not concerned about that. But I mean, like a lot of us, really love Charlie XCX. I think that that's an artist, but I think a lot of people, I don't think that's like surprising anymore. I feel like sometimes the whole concept of like a guilty pleasure, like I kind of just don't think really exists anymore, or like in the same way, like.
Well, no, you reach a certain age where they're pleasures, but I still, and this is where I'll argue with people about it, is no matter at some point you could be listening to something alone, and if someone walked in and caught you listening to it for a millisecond, even though you're going to say that you're cool as shit and you don't care, for that 1 millisecond, you have a skip of a heartbeat because you're like, oh no.
I mean, again, I think that I'm very on the sleeve about all the music that I like and listen to. Like I really like Coldplay, for example, like early Coldplay albums, and I feel like that's a band that a lot of people would hate on.
Hey, Parachutes is a great fucking album. Like,
yeah, Parachutes is great. I also like Viva La Vida. Like I like that song and I like that album, and I feel like that's like maybe it's not even like a hot take. It's such like a tepid take to like that song. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I listen to like quite a bit of like electronic music and EDM, and we all like Aphex Twin. I really like Porter Robinson. My favorite musician these days is this guy named Tycho, who he's just like kind of a synthy electronic musician. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't. I don't think there's any music that you could catch me with that I'd feel like weird about.
All right. Oh, how about, do you remember the last time you cried to a song?
Yeah, there's this song called On Melancholy Hill by the Gorillaz, and for whatever reason that song always reminds me of my dog that I had when I was growing up, and so that song always like makes me like tear up a little bit, no matter when if that song comes on, like immediately I'm like I'm just thinking about my dog. So yeah, I don't know when I heard that for the last time, but yeah.
All right, you got 5 minutes left to live. The world's going to be engulfed by a meteor, and you have to listen to one song before you go out. What song are you listening to?
Time by Pink Floyd.
Wow, that was fucking fast. You may have just broke the record. You may have just broke the record on how fast I answered that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that album is like I could happily die listening to that album, even if it's exactly during Time, which is like the third song.
So would you say Pink Floyd for you is like the band that never lets you down? Like when you don't know what to listen to or you don't know what to put on, you just find yourself putting on Pink Floyd, or is there someone else?
It's funny because I would consider myself more of an album guy, almost more than a band guy. I don't think Pink Floyd has a flawless discography. I think there are very few bands that have flawless discographies to me.
Yeah, I mean, Zeppelin fucked up when they put out Coda, so I mean,
yeah,
they were flawless until then.
Like, yeah, I mean, so if I was to think of only one artist who I'd put on, and it's like I'm set, probably would be Tycho, Tycho, Tycho. I just think that his music just like puts me at ease as well. It's just very calming music, and it's just no matter what I'm doing, if I'm stressed, if I'm anxious, like I can just put on a Tycho song and I just feel like, okay, I can get through the next like thing I have to do.
When it comes to, playing music and being part of so many bands as you are, where is it that you're going to be satisfied? Are you satisfied currently with everything that you're doing, or is there something you want more?
You're asking the real question right now. This is back in my therapy session. I mean, I think it's really hard for me to know what satisfaction is. I do struggle with that a lot as a musician. You have certain goals for yourself. You have certain things that you see for yourself. And I think that Semaphore and the music that I write and the stuff that I'm doing is all on a path towards getting towards those things. But I think there's also a flip side of, you never want to be fully satisfied, but you also have to understand that, because you want the next thing. You always want something better than what you currently have. Not to sound like a goddamn capitalist, but like, Am I 100% satisfied with the current state of Semaphore and my music stuff? Honestly, no. Like I really would like us to be playing more shows, like us to be on the road more, like us to be playing bigger shows, like more people to listen to it. But those are all things that, I don't have any absolutes. I don't have any clear objectives or metrics or numbers in mind. So it's kind of like a dragon you're always going to be chasing a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't think you can go, especially in today's world, with trying to look at numbers and metrics and everything. I usually find, and especially, and this is just me, this is my therapy session.
Totally.
So it's one of those things where as long as I feel when I'm done that I did the best I could do, I'm satisfied with the outcome, no matter whether it's good or bad. I've had interviews that it's been over and I've been like, wow, that was fucking terrible. And then at the same point, I'm like, yeah, but it was a success. It's over with. It's done. And then I get one good comment from it. And I'm like, oh, well, I thought that was straight dog shit. But it doesn't matter. Even though when it was over, I was still satisfied. I was like, well, I try to find that good thing in it where, wow, that was tough. I really worked hard at that. And then at the end, I'm like, I worked hard at it. So I succeeded in that. And
I think
just being okay with it is, I think, the biggest part that you have to look at in your life. It's just being, hey, that's okay.
Absolutely. I mean, it's also complicated by the fact that the timeline for success is, especially when it comes to like digital, like,
oh yeah, you're not an overnight TikTok sensation.
Stuff. Yeah, but even overnight TikTok sensations, there are TikTok sensations of like, someone discovers an album that's like 10 years old and then all of a sudden it's like, that band's like, oh, I guess people are listening to us. Like we might as well come out of retirement and like play shows to like kids who like never were there when we were like trying to be a band,
And I tell you, I see that a lot being an older guy who was into underground and indie stuff, and these bands that get this new lease on life that no one paid attention to really, except for the hardcore kids that loved it. And getting it resurrected and going to a show, and now I'm in my mid 40s and there's 18-year-olds there, and I'm like, how the fuck do they know this? And I'm like, well, it's either from their parents and then somebody tells me like, oh no, this was their song popped up on a YouTube documentary somebody was doing, and that was it. I was like, fucking A.
You have no idea. Yeah. And I think that that's cool. I mean, that's like, the type of art, I think about the phrase timeless a lot. Like, how do you can't ever make something that you want to be timeless. Like, that's not how that works. No. You just have to kind of trust yourself, trust the process, and trust that what you're making will resonate with someone. But those people, like, you might be a time traveler. Like, those people might exist in the future. You might only be able to connect with. You might be making art for people who aren't even born yet.
That's why I say music is the closest thing in reality we have to a time machine. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do I feel success right now? Some level of it, but do I feel like that I've succeeded? No, and I don't think I necessarily want to feel that.
Well, that's a great answer. So, you can tell your therapist they're doing a great job. So what's the next steps for Semaphore? I mean, your album came out in March, and I'm sorry it took me so long to find it, but I did, and now I'm in, and that's I'm a fan.
What we're talking about.
Yeah,
the delay is better than us just disappearing into a black hole. So.
Well, the best part is that it's never going to disappear, and this is where I completely and totally am complete in awe of music and music creation and everything to do with it, because once it's out there and it's put out, it's never going away. We still have the very first recording of music ever. Totally. And it's not going away. And that's what I think is awesome. So I don't think, and some people in their head, and anyone listening to this who creates music and things, just know it's never going to go to that black hole that Siddhu just fucking said it would. It's someone's always going to be able to find it. And that's the important part, that it's out there and people can find it regardless of what anyone's ever going to comment on it. Just put it out there, put your artwork into the universe, and someone like this dumb asshole on this side of the microphone is going to find and maybe fall in love.
Yeah. And that's our goal as well. But yeah, you're asking about what our future has in store.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we're still in August. We're doing. I don't know when this episode's going to come out, but in mid-August, there's this band called Loud Sounds from Providence, and we're doing a string of shows with them, going through Worcester, Massachusetts, then Providence, and then Long Island, and then Semaphore is continuing on to Baltimore. We might do Richmond. That's still kind of in the works. And then in the fall, I think we're going to start basically writing some stuff again. We have some demos of things that we've kind of worked on together. But, usually the way it works is that we write all the music and then I write all the lyrics at one time together once we know what songs are going to be in the album. And that's just kind of how I work best. It just allows me to kind of think about how the songs interact with each other, how the lyrics can interact with each other, and like making sure that my vocal lines aren't kind of doing the same thing in every song. But yeah, I mean, hopefully more shows, bigger shows, an album that makes everyone else listen to us who hasn't listened to us yet.
We're hopefully going to
goal.
get you one more fan from this.
Yeah.
So, that's our goal. One fan at a time.
That's all I want.
Yeah. Before we move into our last segment of the show, we just hit on everything you're doing. So why don't you throw out all your handles and everything so people can follow you and find out exactly and get in touch with you and listen to all your stuff?
Totally. So on Instagram, and I have to pull my phone up because I forget all these things. Instagram, it's Semaphore Music. TikTok, I think it's also Semaphore Music. Yes, it's also Semaphore Music. We're on Twitter, but who cares about Twitter anymore?
Yeah, I have Twitter. I don't think we've put out a tweet in fucking 2 years, honestly.
Yeah, like we joined Threads also, but like I think mainly it's like Instagram and TikTok. TikTok has been more fun. I started that this year, and honestly, like I was very skeptical, and I just turned 30, so not that old, but definitely was hesitant about joining it. But honestly, like people have discovered us that way, and it is a nice way to connect with younger fans too. And so I'm definitely pro using TikTok as a method for having the band be discovered. But those are the two main ones for people to check us out.
Awesome. Well, everybody, you need to go out and check out all their handles, find them, and listen. It may not seem like a big thing, but again, I'm going to say it for the 1 millionth time, and I'll say it on every episode. Please go out, support the artists, buy their merchandise. It's the only way artists actually make money in this world today. So buy their album, buy their merchandise, do whatever you can to help an artist, because that's the most important thing. Otherwise, they do go to that black hole because they go away. And I don't want that. But we are in our last segment. It is called our Weekly Threes. It's where you guys appeared for the first time on the show in our Weekly Threes of 3 things we're listening to. So what are 3 things you're listening to right now that you would like people to check out?
Okay, the 3 things that I would like people to check out, I need to think about a little bit.
Well, the 3 things you listened to so far this week.
There's a new Disclosure album that came out. Okay. The electronic group Disclosure just released like an album that I like Disclosure a lot. I thought the first couple of songs of the album were really sick, and the rest was like okay, but they dropped something. We played with this band called Gluehead in Brooklyn at the beginning of July, and then I went back and checked out their album, and like that's another band you should probably interview them. Like if you liked us and like our music, like they're very much the same vein where it's like shoegaze and it's loud and it's heavy rock music, but there's something unique there that like makes you listen back a couple of times and be like, wait, what did they just do there? Yeah, and then there's this band from the UK called Stay in Nothing that they asked us to play some shows and dates didn't work out, but they came through the East Coast and basically played with all the bands that we're friends with and fans of, and they're really sick. Like I think the guy's name is Axel. He was just really nice guy to meet, and their album is sick. It's like if you just really like Hum and like later Nirvana stuff, like you'll really dig Stay in Nothing as well. Awesome. So I would say those 3 groups.
Awesome. My 3 for this week. First one is a band called Wayside. They dropped an EP recently. It's called Parallax Error and Asymmetry. It is 2 awesome songs. I don't want to genre label really, but let's just call it alt rock. Okay. Next one is Quannic. It's Quannic. Canopsia is the name of the album, and it's noise rock with a little bit of everything for people in it. And last but not least is a band called Bleach Garden, rock band, and the name of the album is Nepenthes. That's Napenthe. Those are my 3 for this week.
Awesome.
So, Siddhu, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for spending some time with us, telling us why we need to love you more than we already do. We appreciate it. We appreciate what you do as an artist, and we hope that we could bring you a little bit of satisfaction in your success for being here and wanting to know more about you. I hope we could play a part in keeping you moving forward and keeping doing what you're doing, because it's really good. We love it, and we appreciate what you do in creating music and putting it out for the world to find, just like we did.
Thanks so much, Shane. Thanks for having me on. This is really awesome to talk to you, and looking forward to hearing this episode back later.
Awesome. Well, everybody, you know what time it is now. It's time to go out, listen to Semaphore, and have a great fucking time. Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band, and don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.